from this perspective. I've walked in your shoes. I've been in the field, and thinking back to those days, I tried to always I put myself in a position of how did I learn best, right? If I was going to learn a new concept or go deeper with a concept, how did I best learn that? And for me, I believe part of it was kind of this in between I need to experience what the client is going to be hearing, so somewhat of a role play, but I recognize that because I live and breathe this industry as my profession, I'm going to perhaps have questions or comments or ideas or be thinking about some of the topics in a different way than how a client is going to perceive them. So I think there's kind of a marriage between a little bit of role playing or taking you through how a client's going to hear it versus also educating ourselves. Right. So I want to kind of level set that in that these next 5 sessions are not designed for you to then immediately take this session. If you were to record this and say, hey, I'm going to go emulate this, it's not necessarily designed to then be 100% client facing. There's a lot of that there, but a lot of this is, hey, we got almost 30 different advisors on the call. And so we need to talk about things a little bit differently. Okay. And so as Jason said, we're going through these 5 sessions to really identify the similarities and how WBC and IBC truly go hand in hand with one another. I did a lot of my production using both concepts and tying them two together. So I promise you, although today is going to be 100% WBC focused, as is next week, and then the 3rd and 4th week will be purely IBC. Now I'll say 95% of it. That 5th session, you will see a complete culmination of all of this and that tie between. So what I would encourage you to do is go through these sessions and really just kind of sit back, take in the concepts, the knowledge, the language, whatever you want to do, but don't necessarily hone in on, okay, how am I going to present it the exact same way he did there to a client, because it may not be designed to do it that way. All right. And as we go through each of these weeks, go back, watch the recording, take notes as a follow-up, send stuff into Jason and Colleen and Dennis and others and say, hey, I want to spend more time on this. You have a great leadership team available to you. And if you need to dive in deeper on certain aspects, let them know and we'll make sure that it gets taken care of. So with that, we've got 54 minutes. I will make sure that we are out of here on time. And let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get rolling. So as you'll see from this first title here, make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Yep. For some of you that have seen quote unquote WBC or gone through some of these concepts in the past, I'm already going to tell you right now that this first slide, this first kind of statement proves the fact of it's not going to be just going through the WBC PowerPoint, right? After this, if you're in a position to where you say, look, I want to be able to deliver this message to my clients, to all of my prospects, what's the best way to learn that? We'll be talking about something a little bit differently. So all of those resources are in place, but I want to frame today and frame this idea of WBC or Wealth Building Cornerstones from this idea that I believe the retirement dream is failing. I truly believe that. And partly is because, you know, this idea of the retirement dream, I think really kind of treks along with the life cycle that we all experience as it relates to time and money. Okay, I'm sure you guys have heard this many times before, but you know, it's when you're young and starting out your career, and you know, perhaps you're not married, no significant other, no children yet, you know, whatever it might be. Oftentimes we find ourselves having a lot of time, right? We don't have all of the obligations on the weekend and such. We have a lot of time on our hands, but we're just getting started out, so we don't have any money to really go do things. Then we fast forward a little bit. We maybe get that special someone. Maybe we get married. Maybe we start to have some kids. And now we definitely have no time, but we may have either no money still because life throws us curveballs, or we may have a little bit of money, but we have no time. Okay. And so this idea of retirement is supposed to be when we have those two married together, time and money. And very simply put, it is not happening today. And I believe that this narrative of wealth building cornerstones as it pertains to income in retirement can discover and highlight three of the biggest reasons why that's not happening for your clients today. Okay, so that's how I'm framing this conversation. And I think it really comes down to beginning right here. All right, when we think about wealth accumulation and all of the exciting stuff that our clients want to talk about, that oftentimes we want to talk to clients about, the first question would be, how do we go about doing that? Hey, Brent, I want to invest money. I want to make a lot of money. What do we do? Right. And typically we start to think about, hey, the name of the game is building this wealth as large as possible. Build that bag as large as we can. And so because that's the objective, we oftentimes go about this by saying, well, where can I get the greatest rate of return? All right. Now, if we peel back those layers a little bit, I think conventional wisdom would say, and I think most people, consumers, would agree that it's a fair statement to say, if I'm really after getting a high rate of return, I probably have to be comfortable with assuming some level of risk. Right? So where can I get the largest rate of return? Understanding that it is going to come with some risk, which, side note, I've always found this interesting. You know, what is the definition of risk? The definition of risk is the likelihood of loss. Right? So if we just think about that for a second, hey, I'm trying to grow my money as large as possible. And in order to do that, I have to structure it in a way that puts me at the greatest likelihood of loss. Right? It's just kind of crazy sometimes, but it is what it is. Okay, so how do we grow this as large as possible? Rate of return, increase risk, or where some people typically go, or maybe go, is, hey, the classic better products, something better. Hey, we have better asset allocation. We charge less of a fee. We've got this silver bullet that is going to hit your objective of building that wealth, and boom, here it is. This is the starting point for why the American dream is failing right now. I'm sorry, not the American dream, the retirement dream. Okay. It's because simply building wealth as large as possible is the wrong measure. It is the wrong benchmark that we should be shooting for as we think about retirement from a financial perspective. Now, hear me on this before I go any further. I am not saying that growing wealth is bad. I'm not saying that the accumulation of wealth is bad and we need to not focus on it. What I'm saying is, if we're trying to get to retirement when we can marriage our time and our money together, if we just focus on building that bag of money as large as possible, we're setting ourselves up for some serious pitfalls. Okay, so let's explore that a little bit further. I think we first have to ask ourselves, once I've made the decision to be a good steward of my finances, and I'm going to start saving money long term, I think we first have to ask ourselves, why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? Okay, and in fact, I mentioned this last week, but I think it's extremely important. If we were to ask most people out there walking today, hey, why are you putting money in your 401k? Or why are you putting money in your IRA, or whatever it might be? Why are you doing that? I think it's safe to assume that most people would respond something along the means of, for retirement. Okay, great. Let's follow that up with, then, great, you're on the right track. Can you explain to me how income in retirement works? How many people are going to be able to give us a plausible answer? Probably a round number, right? Not too many, 0. Okay, so the first basis of this is we need to understand and recognize that the purpose, the reason we save money long term is to generate income in the future. Income, simple, period, end of story. Okay, in fact, think about think about your, not necessarily all of you on couple, again, think of your clients. They're W-2 employees, the ones that are like this, they go to their job in order to get what? To get a paycheck, right? See, they're working to provide cash flow, to provide income, so that then they can go about their life and do the things that they need to do. See, so it's not like when people are saying, hey, I want this really good job. Now, again, I want to hone in just from a financial aspect and be very, very clear on that. But hey, I got this really good job. What they're really saying is it's coming with an income that allows me to do the things that I want to do. So I really want to kind of hit this, and I'm just kind of going with this right now. I've never really teed it up this way, I don't think. But it's almost like in retirement, that the bag of money or the wealth that is there, that's a byproduct of what it's going to produce. It's all about the income, just like your job today is about that paycheck. So rather than just being focused on building that as large as possible, we need to make sure that it is structured in a way that is going to give us the maximum amount of income when we retire. And y'all, seriously, I appreciate you being on mute, and that's kind of the setup of these sessions. But if you have something's burning in your brain right now, please unmute yourself and interrupt, and we'll dialogue or take it offline. So, I mean, really, if I had to put my definition on of retirement, it's really having the confidence and the ability to generate income from what you've saved that gives you the ability not to wake up every morning to go earn that income. I mentioned this again also last week, but I read an article not too long ago in the Harvard Business Review that said we need to stop focusing on net worth and start focusing on cash flow, income. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this is as we follow that up to that person that couldn't explain to us how income works in retirement, and we give them this aha moment that actually isn't really an aha moment. They're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's about income. Yeah, that's what I meant. No, it's not what you meant, because you didn't say that. Okay, it's just that it makes sense to you. In fact, it's not even your fault. It's not even most people's fault out there today that they respond with, hey, retirement, or that their objective is to grow their wealth as large as possible. It's not their fault. And why? Because we have now been conditioned to only focus on accumulation. And really, you know, by and large, with pension plans going away in the private sector, for most people out there, the pension plan used to be, hey, you work for this company until this date, based on some sort of calculation, boom, 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 here's the amount of income you're going to have the rest of your life. Okay, to where now, because most of those have gone away, and out come 401k plans, 457s, 403bs, defined contributions. Now we get that statement in the mail each year, and it's, hey, you earned 14% last year. Awesome, right? We shifted our focus to accumulation. Now, again, hear me. I'm not saying 401ks, 403b. I'm not saying any of those are bad. I'm just saying that they created this space where our mind is now focused on not the most important thing as it when it comes to retirement, financially speaking. Okay, so I can tell you that between today and next week, these 2 sessions of WBC, there are really 4 checkpoints that are absolutely critical for your client to be jiving with you and in lockstep with you before moving on. Meaning, if they disagree with you in that moment, it is not even worth going to the next point until you guys can either get on the same page or you just politely say next. Because continuing down a path that doesn't have this linear progression of, yeah, I'm tracking with you, I'm there, it's not going to work. Okay, so I say that to highlight this point right now. Income is checkpoint number 1. Now, as you're thinking through this, do you think it would be common for you to get a lot of pushback from that? I can tell you absolute statements are really hard to make when communicating with people about their money. So I'm going to try really, really hard to not do that. But I will say that it is very, very unlikely that you will get much pushback with this concept. Oh yeah, it makes sense. All right, I need to put my money in a way to give me income when I retire. Cool. So if we now can start shifting our focus to saving our money, the purpose is to generate income. And if we can start understanding how income and retirement is going to work, might that start providing a blueprint for us of how to allocate our savings so that we can position them in a way that is going to increase our income in the future? Well, yeah, that might make sense. I'm big on analogies. I probably need to start getting some new ones and stealing them from people. But one that I like to use oftentimes is this idea of just picture yourself if you were out in Vegas, and one of the big things that they have out there is you can rent exotic cars, take it on a joyride, have some fun, be there for an hour, and just envision this idea of if you were to do that with some of your guys and gals, some of your buddies, and you're out on this joyride and you look in the back seat and there's $1 million of cash. Okay, you're hooping and hollering, everything's great. Okay, but you start to venture out into the desert, you're driving, you break down, there's no civilization anywhere. How useful is that $1 million? Not very, right? In retirement, it is not about how much money you have. It's about what will it do for you in the form of income. How much income will it safely provide you to alleviate that number one fear of everyone running out of income, running out of money. Okay, so checkpoint number one, all about income. So reason number one why the retirement dream is failing is because we are focusing on accumulation rather than income. Okay, right, wrong, or indifferent. There it is. Okay, so let's start to change the way that we think. All right, now I want to give you another analogy here. And think of this as climbing a mountain. If we were to climb a mountain, all right, and none of us had ever done it before, what would you say the objective might be? And we'll keep this rhetorical for the most part on little things like that. Yeah, I think probably all of us would be saying, well, my gosh, now I like to conquer things. I want to get to the top. Yeah. But then let's say you get some more information and you say in a guide or a Sherpa, whoever tells you, hey, that's awesome, but I just got to tell you this one little thing. Statistically speaking, more deaths occur on the way down the mountain than on the way up. Just so you know. If we then had that piece of information, how might we define the ultimate objective differently? I still want to conquer things. I still want to get to the top. But it may also come with, but you know what, golly, I want to make sure that I can make it back down safely as well. Okay, so this metaphor is tied to our financial lives as well. We have a two-part journey here. All right, getting up the mountain is just one phase. This is our accumulation. I'm going to call it our savings years. We're saving money. Now, another basis, we'll touch on this more a little bit in IBC, but there's a huge difference, and I just caught myself there. There's a huge difference between investing money and saving money. Okay, but for the sake of keeping these things simple, I'm going to call it our accumulation phase, our savings years. Okay, and on the back end, once we get to the top here and we plant our flag, we take our selfie, right? Our back end here, these are now our spending years. Spending, saving, and spending. Okay, which, by the way, behaviorally, yeah, it's a tough word. Behaviorally, this is sometimes very difficult for clients to make that transition. I'll tell you a story. My in-laws retired, golly, about we're coming up not quite a decade, 7-8 years, more than 5. And my father-in-law Tom told me all the time, shortly into it, he'd say, you know, Brent, what's really, really different, they're blessed to have a little bit of money, but he said what's really difficult for us is my whole life I've been conditioned to save, and now it's spend, and it's tough. You know, so we still have a budget. We do these things. So sometimes I think we take for granted, perhaps because we also have not experienced them, what our clients may be going through psychologically, emotionally, behaviorally when they get to that point. Okay. So, but anyways, savings years, spending years. All right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about income. So we first need to understand this section. Boom. Spending. How is income in retirement going to function so that perhaps we know how to allocate our savings on the way up? And here's what everyone needs to realize. Savings rates over here on the left, accumulation of wealth, is pretty simple. Most people understand this. Well, how much am I saving? Okay, for how long, how many number of years, and what rate of return am I getting? The meshing those together, calling a future value calculator. If I do this, here's how much I'll have in the future. Okay, everyone pretty much gets that. But everyone's income is made up of two rates on each side of this mountain. You've got that accumulation rate, which we just defined. How much, how long, what rate of return are you getting? But then on the day you retire, what kicks in is an interest rate over here. And it's the combination of these two, our spending rate and our accumulation rate, that ultimately determine everyone's income. Okay, so it only makes sense then again that we need to begin with the end in mind and understand how that's going to function so that we can position ourselves properly. I'll give you two analogies here just to get the ideas turning. One, I stole both of these. One was imagine, let me go this one. Allison used to be a third grade teacher. And so in the school system, the way it would work is, hey, in third grade, this is the expectation of what the children are going to learn throughout the course of that year. Okay, so they say, hey, they come in here, they should know this. And when they leave, by gosh, they need to know this. So understanding that endpoint then helps the teacher say, all right, well, how are we going to get there? Right? What's going to happen? What's going to be our checkpoints? What needs to be in place before Christmas break? What needs to be in place before spring break? All of this track because they understand what their end objective is. Okay, I think that's great. Anytime, by the way, you can use a simple concept or analogy like that and tie it to your prospect or client's profession, kudos. Here's another one. If I were to go upstairs in a little bit and say, hey, babe, pack your bags. I've made the arrangements for Lila, for the boys. Everything's taken care of. Go pack your bags. We're leaving for the airport in 45 minutes, and we're going on vacation for a week. If I were to say that to her, after she gets past the whole, like, are you sure you have all these things in check? And are you sure Lila's taking care of blah, blah? After she goes through all that, what's her first question to me going to be? Where are we going? Yeah, because she needs to know, hey, are we going to the beach? Do I need my swimsuits? Or are we going in the mountains? Do I need my snow gear? Where am I going so I know how to pack? Okay, there's a couple more of these, but I'm going to leave you with that for today. All right, so fast forward. Let's do a little bit of an exercise here. Once we recognize that it's all about income, then we have to transition into, well, man, why is this so hard? Like, I get, fine, position our savings in a way for income. That seems pretty easy. So why is it that people are still failing? And here's why. When we get to the top of the mountain, there's a problem. Every single person up here faces this. Here's the problem. The problem is we cannot answer two questions that then, as a result of that, make this very, very difficult. And those two questions that face everyone out there today, those two questions are, number one, how long? How long am I going to live? There's no one walking this earth that knows the answer to that. Okay, it makes planning very, very difficult, right? Even if you want to reference life expectancy of your family and yada, 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 great. It doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be like for you. Another little phrase I heard once, actually by Jason, the creator of WBC. He said, we need to stop planning for life expectancy and start planning for life potential. Boom, mic drop. Right? That's good stuff. We need to stop planning for life expectancy and start planning for life potential. Okay? So how long? We can't answer that question. Number two is, now that we've been a good steward, now that we've paid ourselves first, we've accumulated this wealth, we've built this bag. From this point moving forward, however long that's going to be, from this point moving forward, what type of rate of return is my bag going to get? How is the market going to perform? What might be happening in the economies that are going to fluctuate the performance of this? Okay, now because we can't answer these two questions, it makes planning very, very difficult. Then furthermore, once we've already established that we don't know how long and what rate of return we're going to get, then we're hit with reason number two. Reason number two that the retirement dream is not working is because at the top of the mountain, the rules of our money change 180 degrees. Okay, because on the way up, we go from putting money into our accounts to now on the way down, we are taking money out. And so how our accounts are reacting to the fluctuating returns of the market when we distribute versus putting in is 180 degrees different. In fact, let me show you an example here. Okay, so let's say that I had a crystal ball. Okay, and let's just say that there was going to be you were going to experience a retirement horizon of 20 years. Okay, and let's say you had $1 million. Now, $1 million, just a unit of money. I don't care if your client is on pace for a fraction of that or many multiples of that. It's not the point. Just using a unit of money here. Okay, so you're getting ready to retire. You got $1 million, and if I told you that with absolute certainty that you were going to average almost a 13% rate of return, 12.7%, almost 13% rate of return, would you feel comfortable about taking 10% out of your account each year, spending at a 10% clip? Would you feel comfortable with that? And I think most people would say, well, yeah. I mean, sure, that makes sense. Growing by more than I'm taking out. Okay, so 10% of $1 million is 100,000. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we take our 100,000 out every year, and lo and behold, our initial $1 million grows to 2 million, while also experiencing $100,000 of income all along the way. I don't know why this is so difficult, right? I hope my parents are doing this, by the way. It was a joke. Okay, now, what you're probably thinking and what your clients will be thinking here is one of two things or a variation in this realm. And they're likely going to say something along the lines of, well, Brent, even if you could get that type of rate of return, you're not going to get it every single year in the market. Okay, there are going to be ups and downs, and they would be absolutely correct. So, that's not going to happen. The other thing they may say to you is, well, in retirement, you're not going to get a 13% rate of return. Now, what's interesting to me about that one is whether they knew it or not, the basis for that comment was conventional wisdom saying, hey, you know what? In retirement, I can't be as risky with my money. And if I'm not willing to take a fair amount of risk, there's no way I'm going to get a 13% rate of return. See how this works? Right? So we've been conditioned to think this way, or then the best one, a variation of that first, is, well, you know what, Brent, 12.7, that's pretty specific. Why didn't you just round down or round up to 13? 12.7, where is that coming from? Okay, and in fact, that is coming from the history of the market from 1970 to 1989. The S&P did on average 12.7%. Okay, but how are averages calculated? The same way we learned in 4th grade, right? Add them all up and divide by however many you have. Okay, but do you and I get averages? Or as perhaps your client alluded to, or do we get all those ups and downs that make up the average? Yeah, we get all those ups and downs, right? So let's see what happens when we just copy and paste these actual rates of return that made up the average of 12.7 into our linear 12.7 here. It's only one of three outcomes are possible here. We either have more money, less money, or the same amount of money. Okay, so let's check. Paste. What happens? Yeah, we went from having our 100 grand every single year and growing our balance to 2 million to now being completely broke between that 13th, 14th year. Why? And it's because of this rule change that happens at the top of the mountain. Okay. And that rule change, this one, I see a lot of you taking notes, write this down. I still remember to this day, early on in my career, who I stole this from. His name was Mark Miracle. And I use it all the time. Gain is arithmetic. Loss is exponential. When it comes to income and retirement in your accounts, gain is arithmetic. Loss is exponential. And that's what you're looking at here. When we have down years of the market, okay, when we are not earning what we are taking out, think of it as your dollars are the employees of your business and they're manufacturing a widget. Okay, you need to have that widget produced, but 20% of your workers get COVID and they can't come to work anymore. You still need to produce this widget. So by default, it means the other 80% needs to work harder in order to do that, or you have to adjust your expectations. Okay, job number one of your money in retirement is to provide income for you. That's it. Okay, so what happens here is when we're taking out more than what we're earning, we're killing off our workers. Okay. Now, here's another thing. Back to human behavior with it. As you look at this example on the screen here, I am convinced that this will never happen to someone the way I laid it out. And I believe it's for one of two reasons or both. The first one is simple human nature. I want you just to imagine yourself and then subsequently your clients. I want you to imagine the situation. They enter retirement with $1 million. They've worked their whole life. Everything is great. This is awesome. And in the fifth year, at the end of the fifth year, they now have $500,000 left. They have half of what they started with. And again, guys, I don't care if it's start with 5 million, now you have 2.5, start with 5, now you have 250. It's all relative. Okay. They are 50% less than what they began with. How comfortable do you think they're going to feel continuing to take $100,000 a year out of their account? No way. No way. They are going to bury that money in the backyard and they don't want to lose a cent. That's, I believe, then the human nature side of it. The desires, what word am I shooting for? They're going to adjust, but expectations are going to reduce, right? So I believe it's either that, which is why this won't happen, or they're never going to take anywhere near 10% out of their account on the front end. Now, why might that be? And the answer to that is because the financial services industry has been listening to us, right? They recognize that the number one fear is running out of money. And they recognize that, look, hey, because you don't know how long you're going to live and what type of rate of return you're going to get, they've attempted to solve that problem for us, right? And the way they've done that is they've said, you know what, here's what we're going to do. We're going to help people out. And we're going to say, we are going to have this be very scientific. We are going to look at the history of the market and analyze different time periods, different asset allocations, different everything. And we're going to show people, hey, here's the probability that you won't run out of money if you take this withdrawal rate. If you live this long and you take this amount, you have a pretty good chance that you won't go broke. Nothing absolute certain about it, but this is what all the data is telling us. And you know what, when you really, I think I've also really only teed it up that way. I don't know if I ever have, but as I'm saying that, it's almost like, you know what, there, I can understand that. It's almost, it's noble, right? I mean, it's better than just having people, you know, go and freelance with it. But I want you to see how under that thought process, the unintended consequence that is created. Okay, perhaps some of you are already starting to do some rough math in your mind, but let's go through that. So out come these withdrawal rate simulations. Monte Carlo, there are some others. And graphically, here's what the results of these look like. Okay, now, full disclosure here, any of these simulations are generated based upon past actual performance of the market. Okay, there is zero manipulation. I don't care if it's the girl over at Edward Jones or the guy over at Morgan Stanley that produces these for you or for your client. It's off of historical, factual data. So the results are what they are. Okay, there's no manipulation here. But graphically, here's what this looks like. Okay, so here's how we read this thing. Down here at the bottom are years into retirement. So the day you retire and then when you check out. All right. Over here on the left, your probability of not running out of money. Okay, so let's look at this first one here. Let's just go to the extremes. We'll go this bottom curve here, the 8%. That was an 8%. And if someone were to live 25 years into retirement, they would have a 10% chance of not running out of money. Okay, so what's another way that I could say that? Yeah, the complete inverse, right? They would have a 90% chance of being broke. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to then say, well, 8% must just be too aggressive. Let's back that down. Okay, and we could go through a whole progression here, but for the sake of time, we're gonna keep going. But this is where the 4% rule was founded. Bill Bengen, a financial planner out in California, is the one that coined that phrase and is responsible for the research behind it that basically said, hey, look, someone entering retirement can withdraw 4% from their portfolio and put the odds in their favor that they will not run out of money. 4% is was widely accepted as the safe withdrawal rate. Okay, but I want you to just think about this here for a second. Are people living longer today or shorter than they were a decade ago, let alone 2 decades, 3 decades ago? Right? We're living longer. So again, here's a part where this isn't necessarily a client interaction piece. This is more for us. If you just look at these curves here, every single one of them, even 3% at the top, which direction is it going? Down and to the right, either drastically or gradually, but it's how it goes. The longer I'm driving down here, the more likely that that's going to happen. Okay, so I digress. Anyways, the 4% rule. It's where it comes from. Now, I used to reference, or I did reference that it used to be this way. In fact, look at some of these headlines from Kiplinger of February of 2020. Retirees who live by the 4% rule and who keep pulling out money of their portfolios, trusting that it won't run out, could end up regretting it. The Wall Street Journal, say goodbye to the 4% rule. Well, it was beautiful while it lasted. Morningstar, an investment research firm, says that, you know what, we find that someone who wants a 90% chance, meaning 90% chance of not running out over a 30-year time horizon. Again, people are living longer. Forget life expectancy. We need to plan for life potential. We find that someone that wants a 90% chance of not running out of money can only withdraw 2.8%. Okay, now, and I kid you not, tell your clients or you go look. If you were to go and Google the 4% rule, nowadays about 70% of what you're going to read, maybe even less, is going to say, yeah, 4%, that, you know, it is what it is. But the other 30, 40%, maybe even more, is going to say, you know what? Nope. 4% is too aggressive. 4% is too much. All right. So much of the financial services industry is now in lockstep with, you know what? Hey, you cannot withdraw that much. Okay. So going back to our chart here, that is where, for the sake of this discussion with the client, all right, although I can back up 2.8%, I could back up lower and so on and so forth. I say, you know what, how about we just split the difference for the balance of our discussion, split the difference, call it somewhere between 3 and 4%, and just call it 3.5%. Are you good with that? Getting their thoughts right now. Let me keep going here for a second. Probability of not running out of money. How is that defined? This is not the 11th commandment of thou shalt not spend principal. Okay, this is not an earnings rate. This is a distribution rate. This is a spending rate. This is a literally go to grandma's counter and pull off the cookie jar and take a cookie out. All right. So the probability of not running out of money is defined by having at least $1 left in the account. Okay. Think again, these are computer simulations that they're going through all these iterations, and did it work or did it not? Is it a positive portfolio or is it not? Boom. That's what it is. Now hear me on this. It's not saying that in this situation you're only going to have $1 left. It's just saying that the measurement of did you run out or not is there any money left? Okay. Now, again, as I reference these checkpoints, here's checkpoint number 2. Absolutely critical that the client understands this right now. And what I mean by that is if they're thinking 4%, that's nuts. Last year I just got 12% in my 401k, and I think 2 years before that I got 14 at 4%. This is crazy. I can definitely do more than that. If they're in that headspace, hit the pause button, because number one, you perhaps did not communicate effectively around the idea of in retirement, the rules change. I don't want to hear about what you got in your 401k last year while you're 45 years old. Okay. So the rules change when we get to retirement. And number two, sometimes it's not out of arrogance or being a jerk. It's just out of ignorance. So some people may just need a little bit more of an explanation, or a little bit more, spend some time on this concept of, oh my gosh, yeah, all right, wow, that's really low. Maybe instead of some of those headlines, maybe they want the actual articles. Maybe they want some research from some financial analysts that say, yeah, when you get to retirement, if you pull more than that, you're increasing your likelihood of running out. But agreement on this is how it is critical right here. Because as some of you that have been exposed to this, and as you're hearing me talk about, hey, let's have maximum income in retirement and blah, 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 blah. Anytime you're trying to have a maximum of something, you need to have a basis to compare it to, right? And that basis for comparison is going to be under the traditional route, the traditional path that they are on. So they first need to recognize that, hey, what am I on track for? What does this look like? What is this problem? And if they don't believe that piece of it, then no comparison matters. You with me? Okay. So again, this is not an earnings rate. This is a spending rate. All right. Now, here again is the unintended consequence. The unintended consequence of, golly, I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I don't know what type of rate of return I'm going to get. The unintended consequence is very low income rates. Okay, let's just start doing some math with this. On $1 million at a 3.5% withdrawal rate that we just got agreement for is $35,000 a year. $35,000 per year. And oh, by the way, it is non-guaranteed. Hear me. High probability of success that you won't run out but it is not guaranteed to you. Now, I'd venture to say anyone that's able to accumulate $1 million was probably earning a whole heck of a lot more than 35 grand to get there. Would you agree? Yes or yes? Okay, so let's tie this piece together. In fact, let's look at a brief kind of quick case study just to bring some of this real life into it. All right, here's situation. Daniel and Kara. These were actual clients. We'll look at the case eventually. Young couple, they're 40, dual incomes, both making $90,000. They worked at the same company, got some money in their 401k, contributions match. Now, there are tons of these people out there today. I will acknowledge, though, what Daniel and Kara are very good at is this right here. Okay, they're good savers. Okay, they're good savers, but those people are certainly out there. Okay, they're good savers. So the first thing that we have to look at is, hey, because you've just been focused on building your bags and accumulating your wealth, let's just see what this looks like in the future as we stand at the top of the mountain. Okay, so income projections. Now, I'll do this first one for you, and then you can just take my word for it on the other one. So again, I mentioned that accumulation rate is just future value. Okay, so currently Daniel has $80,000 in his 401k. How much is he adding to it every year? Well, he's doing 13.5 of himself. His company's doing 4,500. So 18,000 is being added to that plan right now. Okay, so annually $18,000. Let's just say that he's going to get a net of fees, all of that, a 6% rate of return, and over 25 years. They were 40 today, so we're projecting out to age 65. 1.39 million. All right, everyone good there? So his future value, 1.39 million. Exact same calculation over on the right. Take my word for it. She was going to have 1.475 million. All right, she started with a little bit of a higher balance, as you can see there. Now, look at this. Let's add those two together for when they get to retirement. 1,390,000 plus 1,475,000. Okay, $2.8 million between the two of them. I mean, most people would say, oh my gosh, that's great. Yes, that's what I'm shooting for. Guys, let me pause for a second too. And mind you, I haven't talked about inflation. I haven't brought that into the conversation yet. Is it important? Is it relevant? Yes. Does it always come up? Not necessarily. Depends on the client, depends on the situation, depends on how much we need to. You know, don't bring a gun to a knife fight type thing. But 2.865 million. Now, how much income is that going to give them? We multiply it by our withdrawal rate. So times 0.035, 100,000 of combined income. All right. So it's clear to see here as they're looking at this of, oh my gosh, we have $2.8 million. That sounds incredible, but this is only going to provide us $100,000 of income. It's not enough. Okay. This is why this idea, and not enough for them in their situation. Okay. This is why this idea of, oh my gosh, when we get to retirement, we're going to have all this time on our hands, but gosh, we don't have the money. And also hear me on this. This would be a good basis for our next meeting. Sometimes advisors will say, you know what, they'll confuse liquidity. They'll confuse liquidity with account balances. And what I mean by that is the 2.8 million that they have in their accounts here. Is there any rule out there that says they can't take 500,000 out and go buy a lake home? Is there any rule that prohibits that? And the answer is no. And don't bring up taxes and all that. That's not where I'm going. Are they restricted after 59 and a half, they've retired? Are they restricted with how much they're going to pull out? The answer is no. So someone may say, you know what? Yeah, see, that money is liquid. But here's what you need to understand. They needed that entire $2.8 million balance to generate the $100,000 of income for them. Therefore, that money is only liquid if you understand that, hey, your income is going to drop. Remember, those think of every dollar that you have as an employee of your company, of your personal economy. Okay, so just because you can have it doesn't mean it's liquid. Okay, so let's set this whole thing up. Here is what people ultimately, this is the path that we're leading them down of. Hey, there are 3 problems that are disrupting this, and ultimately here's what we can do to overcome it. The first one is we just have to, oops, let me advance the page here. The first one is we have got to first identify our objective. And that was, what is the purpose of saving money long term? And it is to generate income in the future. Okay. Now, again, also let me plug this. The word long term there is very, very critical. There is long-term savings. There's short-term. I don't even want to get into the intermediate piece right now, but what I'm referencing here is money that was marked for the future, for this idea of retirement. That's income. You may still have short-term savings goals that are other than that. This is just for long-term. Okay, we good? All right, identify the objective, income. Second, we need to understand that the rules change. Understand that the rules change at the top of the mountain. Gain is arithmetic, loss is exponential. Number three, do not settle for low income rates. You know how many people I've talked to that when they go over this, part of their first reaction is, oh man, well, I guess we're not going to be able to do everything that we wanted. Like, oh man, I guess, we have to just adjust our expectations. All right, we're just conditioned to not be curious, to not, to go with the masses. That's really what it is. By and large, especially financially speaking, people have a herd mentality. Okay. So what we're going to show people here is number 3, do not settle for these low income rates. Now, Brent, what are you saying? Are you saying just take the higher withdrawal rates and, hope and pray and cross your fingers that you're not going to run out? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is through this progression of first identifying the objective, being income, second, understanding that the rules change, and number 3, the path that I'm currently on is not necessarily as favorable as I was wanting. Now, when we're in that headspace, we can shift people into what we need to do is we need to focus first on a strategy that is going to isolate the main objective of every dollar that we're saving long term of being income. We're going to start with a strategy that ties in the efficient use of those dollars to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a position to get off of those curves and to set ourselves up with options to increase our income in retirement. That is ultimately where we need to go. So as a recap from today, this was point number 1, and however this eventually is communicated to your prospect, this is that natural break of the conversation. Purpose, problem, attempted solution that comes with that unintended consequence. Purpose, income, problem. I don't know how long I'm going to live and what type of rate of return I'm going to get. Makes this very difficult. So financial services industry has settled on withdrawal rates, but gosh, sets me up for low income. Purpose, problem, attempted solution, unintended consequence. Then after we've created this platform, now when we get back next week and in the next conversation with the client, now we start introducing this strategy. Now we start to show them how they can perhaps have their dollars work smarter for them rather than harder. Okay, so 3 minutes to spare. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully we're laying that groundwork. go ahead and unmute yourself if you have questions or comments or feedback or what have you. And then we'll get ready for next week.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brent. We'll take one or two quick questions. I'm sure we'll have the chance to dialogue more as we go. But like Brent said, today was about laying that platform and foundation, and that was really, really well done. But any rapid fire questions here real quick before we wrap today? Maybe Brent, you can take us back to gallery view just so we can make sure we don't.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No worries, we're good. People are still finishing their notes. I've got 2 pages full of notes, so I get that. Yeah, if anybody has a question, throw it out. While you're thinking, I just want to affirm this idea of income that Brent has been pushing. We had our January firm-wide meeting, and we had a guest advisor speak at that time. His name was Adam Solano from Lakeside Financial Group in the North Burbs, and he kind of just said anecdotally, teachers are the happiest in retirement because 80 to 100% of their income needs are in guaranteed income, and that most people don't use their 401k and 403b out of fear. And that very much aligns with what Brent is putting a great point to today.
No doubt.
You've got us speechless. I love
That's all
it.
good.
You know,
well, yeah, seriously, as a follow-up to this, and any thoughts, ideas, comments that you have that we all iron sharpens iron. Get them to Jason, get them to the rest of the leadership team, get it out there. We'll kick off with it next week. And then we'll keep rolling. And like I said, I promise by week 5, we will tie it all together.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Yeah, let's not limit questions to this time. You know, go ahead and email or text me any questions that you have. We can get those to Brent to kick off next week. And like you said, we're going into strategy on this idea of efficiency starting next Wednesday. We'll be back at 11 o'clock, same room, same time, same guy. And Brent will just be a little bit tanner from being down in Florida. We'll hold him accountable on that. And
Tanner Red, one of the two.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you all. See ya.